Welcome to a deep dive into a really pivotal moment in Indian history, the 1857 War of Independence. But we're not just doing the usual dates and battles, We're going deeper, using Veer Savarkar's book, The Indian War of Independence of 1857, as our guide.
Savarkar, he had this whole unique take on 1857.
Uh-huh.
He saw it not as a simple mutiny triggered by, those controversial cartridges. He saw it as like a meticulously planned war.
Wow.
For complete independence from British rule.
Good. He's like reframing the entire narrative.
Exactly.
Instead of just this like random uprising, he's presenting it as this calculated strategy for Swaraj, for self-rule.
Yeah, exactly. And to understand why this perspective is still so powerful, even today in India, we need to understand how he crafted this whole narrative.
Yeah.
And it all starts with his mission.
Yes.
He wasn't just writing history.
Darn.
He was writing a blueprint for action.
It's crazy that he wrote this in exile. Like he was smuggling copies into India,
Oh, yeah.
disguised as popular novels.
Yeah, talk about dedication.
Like Pickwick Papers and Don Quixote as covers to spread. No. Like a revolutionary message.
It shows how far he was willing to go to get his ideas into the hands of the people that yearn for freedom.
Right.
Like he was targeting influential figures, revolutionaries, even military camps, anyone he thought could rekindle this fight for independence.
Imagine being that young man that he convinced to smuggle a copy into India.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing the risks involved. It must felt like holding a piece of like the future.
Yeah.
That so many thought was impossible.
Right.
And speaking of challenging the impossible, he goes straight for that Sepoy mutiny narrative.
Oh, yeah.
Like the one that was so widely accepted.
Right.
He's basically saying attributing the uprising to just greased cartridges is absurd.
It makes you think, like how history is written by the victors.
Yeah.
Savarkar wants us to think about figures like Nana Sahib, the Emperor of Delhi, the Queen of Jhansi, who had everything to lose, risk their lives for this cause.
They all joined.
If it were just about cartridges, why would they join a fight that didn't even directly impact them?
Right. And he points out that when the British offered alternative cartridges, the revolt didn't stop.
Right.
Clearly, something like much deeper was driving this whole movement.
Yeah.
Wasn't Savarkar also criticized?
Yeah.
I mean, for romanticizing violence?
Yeah.
How do we, reconcile that?
Yeah, that's a question.
With his message of unity and freedom?
That's a question historians still grapple with.
Yeah.
He doesn't shy away from the brutality of the uprising.
Right.
But argues that the fight for freedom, oftentimes it necessitates sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's a very complex situation that requires a very nuanced understanding.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. He wants us to see the cartridges as maybe a spark.
Okay.
But the real fuel was this burning desire for freedom.
Okay.
Ignited by years of British policies that many Indians saw as, exploitative.
Unjust.
And unjust, yeah.
And he uses Lord Dalhousie as a prime example of this, painting him as this architect of British expansion, using policies like the doctrine of lapse to seize control of Indian states.
So this doctrinal lapse, it wasn't just a loophole.
Right.
He uses it to show how the British deliberately rigged the system to seize Indian land.
Yeah.
He annexed states like Satara, Nagpur, despite treaties and promises, fueling resentment against British rule.
He compares it to how even a peasant's cottage, would be inherited by family.
Right.
Yet vast kingdoms were taken away.
Yeah.
Using this policy from Indian rulers.
The hypocrisy is glaring.
Yeah.
And Savarkar wants to make sure we see this as a deliberate attack on Indian sovereignty and tradition.
He's using Dalhousie as the embodiment of British colonialism.
Yes.
The architect of their expansionist agenda.
Yes.
Which makes him a perfect villain.
Absolutely.
In this whole narrative.
Yes.
And juxtaposed against this villain, we have figures like Nana Sahib, who he presents in this very nuanced light.
Right.
He doesn't shy away from the violence associated with the uprising.
Of course not.
But points out that even British accounts describe Nana Sahib as having positive qualities.
He's forcing us to confront the complexity, of the situation. That even amid chaos and bloodshed, individuals defied easy categorization.
Yeah.
Regardless of how negatively Nana Sahib was portrayed by the British.
Right.
His fight for Swaraj makes him a hero in the eyes of Indians.
Yeah.
He even uses this powerful image of Nana Sahib as the incarnation of vengeance.
Wow.
for colonized India. You can almost feel the passion and anger in his words.
That's a powerful way to frame it.
Right.
He's not just presenting facts, he's evoking an emotional response.
Exactly. And he continues this by focusing on Oud
Okay.
as a prime example of British hypocrisy and greed, showing how they manipulated the Nabob of Oud, exploited the region's resources, and then used his inability to meet their demands as justification for annexation.
It's like a classic case of creating a problem and then solving it
Exactly.
for your own benefit.
Exactly.
He argues that Oud's fertile land and abundant resources were the real reasons for the annexation,
Right.
not any supposed misrule by the Nabob.
Right.
He's drawing this direct line between British policies
Right.
and the growing unrest among Indians, like showing the seeds of rebellion they were sowing.
Absolutely. And this is where Savarkar's emphasis on religion comes in.
Okay.
He argues that the British were actively trying to convert Indians to Christianity,
Right.
fueling fear and resentment.
He cites missionary activity, government policies that seemed to favor Christian converts.
Yeah.
And then there were those rumors about the use of cow and pig fat in cartridges,
Right.
which would have been deeply offensive to both Hindus and Muslims. Savarkar argues that whether or not those rumors were true, the perception of British intentions was enough
It was enough.
to push people towards rebellion.
Right.
He's suggesting that the British, either intentionally or inadvertently, used religious anxieties to further their control, which ultimately backfired,
Yes.
and to further illustrate the organized nature of the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Swaraj describes how revolutionaries used a red lotus as a symbol to silently spread the message of rebellion among sepoy regiments across northern India.
It's subtle but powerful.
Yeah.
Contrasting the quiet determination of the rebels with the, bombastic pronouncements of British officials.
Right.
He's chipping away at the British portrayal of a chaotic and uncoordinated uprising.
Yeah. It's like a secret code,
Yeah,
binding them together in their fight for freedom.
absolutely.
But this wasn't just like a military revolt, right?
Right.
Savarkar emphasizes that it was a widespread popular uprising, with civilians, villagers, even government officials secretly supporting the revolutionaries.
Yeah.
He describes how ordinary people, inspired by patriotic songs and this message of Swaraj, actively resisted British rule. He's painting a picture of a nation uniting against oppression, like a truly national struggle.
And that's such a stark contrast to the British narrative
Yeah,
that tried to downplay the rebellion
right.
as just a localized mutiny.
A localized mutiny?
It's almost as if he's saying, look closer, look closer. This wasn't just a few disgruntled soldiers. This was an entire nation
Right.
rising up.
That's a really compelling point. But of course, things didn't exactly go as planned for the revolutionaries, did they?
Well, no.
Savarkar describes the fall of Delhi,
Yes.
Lucknow, highlighting the fierce fighting, the eventual British victories.
Mm-hmm.
But even in defeat, he focuses on the human cost,
Yes.
the brutality,
The brutality.
and the sacrifices
sacrifices.
made by those who fought for freedom.
And he includes this detail about Lucknow. That I find so interesting.
Okay.
While the British were celebrating their military triumph, the revolutionaries, including their leaders,
Right.
they escaped. They
Yeah.
lived to fight another day.
It's like even in defeat, the spirit of rebellion,
Persisted.
it persisted. But even as like major cities fell,
Right.
the spirit of resistance, it continued to burn brightly
Oh, yeah.
in smaller pockets of rebellion, like Ambarpur.
Ambarpur. This is where Savarkar's storytelling truly shines.
Oh.
He describes the small fort
Right.
defying a massive British and Nepalese army.
Wow.
With only 34 defenders. They fought until the very end, all but one dying in action.
Wow. It's hard to imagine the courage
Right.
to face those odds.
Yes.
Savarkar uses this story to contrast like their selflessness
Right.
with the self-serving loyalty of rulers like Jung Bahadur of Nepal,
Right.
who sided with the British.
Yeah, it makes you question, who are the real heroes.
Yeah.
The ones who fight for personal gain or the ones who fight for the freedom of their people.
It really does. And speaking of heroes, we can't forget Kumar Singh,
Kumar Singh.
the aging leader who, for Savarkar, epitomized guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
Despite limited resources, Kumar Singh, he inflicted repeated defeats
Oh, yeah.
on the British through cunning tactics and refusal to engage in open battle.
Right.
He retook his palace and died on, for a few days, what was an independent throne.
Such a powerful image.
A powerful image of defiance.
Yeah.
A reminder that even against overwhelming odds, victory can be achieved. That's a pretty incredible story.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting to contrast his success with Tatia Tope. While he was like a brilliant strategist, he faced demoralized troops and couldn't maintain that same level of guerrilla effectiveness. What makes guerrilla warfare successful? Is it just tactics, or is there something more?
Yeah.
Like the morale, the commitment of the fighters themselves?
That's a question historians continue to debate.
Right.
Savarkar's narrative invites us to consider that it's not just about military strategy. It's also about the unwavering spirit of those who are fighting for freedom.
Yeah, that makes sense. And of course, no discussion of 1857 would be complete without mentioning the Queen of Jhansi, Rani Lakshmibai. Savarkar paints this vivid picture of her leading the charge, her courage inspiring even the most hesitant soldier. He portrays her as like this symbol of defiance.
Yes.
A leader who not only fought on the battlefield, but also cared for her people.
Right.
Ensuring their well-being, even during times of hardship.
He wants to challenge that stereotypical image of a warrior queen, showing that strength and compassion.
They can go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand.
Her final stand against the British is almost legendary.
Oh, yeah.
Savarkar describes her charging into battle.
Sword in hand.
Sword in hand, refusing to yield.
Refusing to back down.
An image that has inspired generations.
Generations of Indians.
A testament to the spirit of those who fought for their freedom.
It speaks to Savarkar's broader message that even in defeat, the spirit of resistance can live on.
Yes.
And inspire future generations.
Yeah, it truly is an inspiring story. But it makes you wonder, if the spirit of resistance was so strong, why did the uprising ultimately fail?
Savarkar doesn't shy away from this question.
Okay.
He places a lot of the blame on internal divisions and betrayals, particularly the actions of certain Indian rulers who chose to side with the British, prioritizing their own interests.
Above the fight for freedom.
Over the fight for freedom.
It's a critique that still resonates today.
Absolutely.
This question of unity.
Yes.
Of overcoming internal divisions.
Yeah.
It's still a challenge for, like, so many societies. And it's this theme of unity that Savarkar keeps coming back to. He wants to emphasize that 1857 wasn't just a series of, like, isolated incidents.
No.
But a coordinated national struggle.
A national struggle.
Involving people from all walks of life.
He discusses the role of religious leaders, both Hindu and Muslim, in spreading the message of rebellion. He highlights the participation of civilians. Villagers, townspeople, who actively supported the revolutionaries. He even mentions how a red lotus was used as a symbol to silently communicate and coordinate actions among rebel groups.
It's like he's peeling back the layers of history, revealing these hidden networks of resistance that the British tried to suppress.
Challenging that official narrative, showing that this wasn't just a chaotic mutiny, but a well-organized movement that challenged British rule at its core.
And this counter-narrative, whether you agree with, like, all aspects of it or not, it has had a profound impact on how 1857 is viewed in India today.
Savarkar's book, despite its flaws and the controversies surrounding his later political views, has become essential reading for anyone who wants to understand this pivotal moment in Indian history.
It's not just like a dry historical account.
No.
It's a passionate call to action.
Yes.
Urging Indians to remember their past struggles. And strive for a future free from oppression.
He wants us to engage with history, not just as a series of events, but as a source of inspiration. A wellspring of ideas that can guide future generations.
So if Savarkar believed that 1857 was a blueprint for future action, what lessons can we learn from his account? What would he say to those fighting for various forms of freedom today? What might we learn from both the successes and the failures of this uprising?
That's a question worth pondering.
It really is. It's amazing how a deep dive into history can reveal insights that are still relevant today.
Absolutely.
And as we delve deeper into Savarkar's perspective, we'll explore those lessons and uncover even more about this pivotal moment in India's fight for freedom.
Absolutely. What's fascinating is how Savarkar brings this whole grand narrative of 1857 to life through these personal, almost intimate stories of the individuals, who really shaped the rebellion.
Right.
It's not just about the battles.
Yeah.
It's about the people who fought them.
Absolutely. Like Tatya Tope, this brilliant military strategist who Savarkar says trained alongside Nana Sahib and the Queen of Jhansi as a child.
It's like they were destined.
It's like they were destined to lead this fight together. Yeah.
It adds this almost like mythical quality to their stories, highlighting the deep roots of their resistance.
They weren't just reacting to like immediate events. They were carrying on this legacy of defiance against British rule.
Yeah.
And Tatya Tope was known for his cunning, like even managing to outsmart the British at Cawnpur.
Oh, yeah.
For a while. Savarkar really admires his ability to rally demoralized troops.
Yes.
And his understanding of guerrilla warfare. But as we discussed earlier, he couldn't always overcome the challenges of leading an army that lacked discipline and resources of the British.
It makes you wonder, like, how things might have unfolded if the revolutionaries had access to the same resources as the British.
Yeah. What if the playing field had been level? Could the outcome have been different?
Right.
But he also doesn't shy away from the brutal realities of the war, like the fall of Lucknow. He vividly describes the street-to-street battles, the sheer determination of the revolutionaries. But even in defeat, he finds those glimmers of hope. He notes that while the British were celebrating their victory, the revolutionaries, including their leaders, escaped. They lived to fight another day.
It's a powerful reminder that even when you're facing setbacks, that spirit of resistance, it endures.
It endures. And this spirit is embodied in his account of the siege of Jhansi.
Oh, yeah.
He describes the Queen, Rani Lakshmibai, leading her troops, inspiring them.
Inspiring them with her courage, with her determination.
He paints her as the symbol of defiance.
A leader who not only fought on the battlefield, but cared for her people, making sure they were taken care of, even during times of hardship.
It's fascinating how he portrays her as both a warrior and a compassionate leader.
Right.
Someone who fought for her people's freedom and well-being.
He wants us to see that strength and compassion can go hand in hand.
Her final stand against the British is truly legendary.
Oh, it's legendary.
Savarkar describes her charging into battle, sword in hand, refusing to yield.
Such a powerful image.
It's an image that has inspired generations of Indians, a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who fought for their freedom.
And he uses her story to inspire future generations, to show them that even when you're facing overwhelming odds, courage and defiance can make a difference.
But it also begs the question, if this spirit of resistance was so strong, why did the uprising ultimately fail?
Savarkar doesn't shy away from that question. He places a lot of the blame on internal divisions and betrayals.
Right.
He specifically criticizes those Indian rulers who chose to side with the British, putting their own interests above the fight for freedom.
Yeah, it's a harsh critique.
It is.
But it raises these important questions about the complexities of power and the choices people make during times of upheaval.
Absolutely. It reminds us that even the most powerful movements can be undermined by internal conflict.
Betrayals.
And betrayals, yes.
Yeah, and this theme of unity is central to Savarkar's narrative.
Right.
He wants to emphasize that 1857 wasn't just a series of isolated incidents.
No.
But a coordinated national struggle that involved people from all walks of life.
He highlights the role of religious leaders, both Hindu and Muslim, in spreading the message of the rebellion. He shows how ordinary people, villagers, townspeople, farmers, all contributed to the fight.
He even mentions the use of a red lotus.
As a symbol.
Silently communicate.
Right.
Coordinate actions
Yeah.
among rebel groups.
He's contradicting the official narrative.
Yeah.
Showing that this wasn't just a chaotic mutiny, but a well-organized movement.
Right.
That challenged British rule at its core.
And this counter-narrative, whether you agree with all aspects of it or not, has had a profound impact on how 1857 is viewed in India today.
Savarkar's book.
Yeah.
Despite its flaws.
Yeah.
And the controversies surrounding his later political views has become essential reading for anyone who wants to understand this pivotal moment in Indian history.
Yeah, it's not just like a dry historical account.
No, not at all.
It's a passionate call to action,
It is.
urging Indians to remember their past struggles
Yes.
and strive for a future free from oppression.
He wants us to engage with history, not just as this series of events, but as a source of inspiration.
A wellspring of ideas that can guide future generations. So if Savarkar believed that 1857 was a blueprint for future action, what lessons can we learn from his account? What would he say to those fighting for various forms of freedom today?
Yeah.
What might we learn from both the successes and the failures of this uprising?
These are questions that Savarkar's work compels us to confront, even today.
Yes.
As we grapple with issues of justice, equality, and freedom in our own time.
Exactly. But Savarkar doesn't just focus on the grand narrative of rebellion.
Right.
He also zooms in on the individual stories of those who paid the ultimate price for their beliefs.
He describes the executions of some of the key figures of the rebellion.
Yeah, like Tati Tope, the Raja Shorpur, in detail.
Yeah.
It's almost as if he wants us to bear witness to their sacrifice, to understand the personal cost of fighting for freedom.
He's not just recounting historical facts,
Yeah.
He's inviting us to connect with the human side of the story, to empathize with those who stood up for what they believed in, even when facing impossible odds.
It's a powerful message. It transcends time and place, reminding us that the fight for freedom is often a long, arduous journey, filled with both triumphs and tragedies. But despite the tragic end of many of these figures, Savarkar wants to leave us with a sense of hope.
Right.
He reiterates his belief that 1857 was a war for complete independence, a national struggle for Swaraj.
He argues that even though the rebellion was ultimately crushed, it planted the seeds for India's eventual independence.
Right.
It showed that the British Empire, despite its might, was not invincible.
And he emphasizes that this was not just a Hindu or Muslim struggle, but a fight for all Indians.
Yes.
Regardless of religion.
Regardless of background.
Or background.
He's calling for unity.
Yeah.
Urging Indians to remember their shared history of resistance.
Right.
And to work together.
Yeah.
To achieve a future free from oppression.
It's a message that continues to resonate in India today, as people from all walks of life work together to address the challenges facing their nation. Savarkar's book has left us with a lot to think about. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'd like to hear your final thoughts on this pivotal moment in Indian history and its lasting legacy.
Savarkar's account of 1857, while controversial in some aspects, has undeniably shaped how we view this pivotal moment.
Right.
He challenged the dominant narrative, highlighted the courage, the strategic thinking, the widespread support for the rebellion, and reframed it as a war for complete independence.
It's amazing how one book can shift our understanding of history so profoundly.
It serves as a reminder that history is not just this, collection of facts, but a tapestry of narratives, often shaped by those in power.
Yeah.
Savarkar's work encourages us to question those narratives, to dig deeper, consider alternative perspectives, and perhaps most importantly, he challenges us to draw lessons from the past, to apply those insights to our own lives, and to continue the fight for a more just and equitable world. It's really striking how Savarkar, he manages to weave these deeply personal stories into this grand narrative of the 1857 war.
Right.
He doesn't just tell us what happened. He makes us feel the weight of each sacrifice, each act of defiance.
He doesn't shy away from describing those brutal executions of leaders like Tati Tope.
Oh, no.
The Raja of Shorpur, in detail.
He wants us to confront that harsh reality faced by those who dared to challenge British rule.
He contrasts the British brutality with what he portrays as the often more humane actions of the revolutionaries. It makes you question who the real savages were.
It's a powerful technique.
Yeah.
By highlighting these contrasts, Savarkar challenges us to really reconsider our assumptions about good and evil.
Victors and vanquished.
Yes.
And through it all, he leaves us with this unwavering conviction that 1857 was not just a mutiny, but a full-fledged war for complete independence, a national struggle for Swaraj.
He meticulously dismantles that British narrative of a localized, spontaneous uprising. And replaces it with this vision of a coordinated, nationwide fight for self-rule.
It's fascinating how this narrative, though controversial, has profoundly shaped how many Indians view their own history.
It's become a source of inspiration, a rallying cry for self-reliance and resistance against injustice.
Savarkar's work. It sparked a conversation that continues to this day, raising questions about how we interpret history.
Yeah.
Who gets to tell their story, and what it truly means to fight for freedom.
Absolutely.
It's been an incredible journey exploring Savarkar's 1857. We've delved into the heart of a pivotal moment in Indian history, uncovering not just facts, but the powerful narratives that, shape how we understand the past.
And as we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. If Savarkar believed 1857 was like a blueprint for future action, what lessons do you think it holds for people fighting for various forms of freedom today?
What resonates with you most from Savarkar's perspective? His emphasis on unity, his portrayal of individual courage, or maybe his unwavering belief in the power of resistance, even in the face of overwhelming odds.
Savarkar's 1857 is a story that continues to challenge and inspire, reminding us that the fight for freedom is never truly over. It's a fight that each generation must take up in its own way, drawing strength and guidance from the struggles of those who came before.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Veer Savarkar's 1857. It's a story that continues to resonate, prompting us to confront the complexities of history and to never stop fighting for a better future.